everyone, it's Jennifer. Welcome to Child of Light Crafts. Last week I was talking about books that I got out of my library. And this week I'm going to be talking about a book that I received for Christmas. It's called The Modern Guide to Granny Squares. So yesterday I wanted to do a video and my next door neighbor was using a power washer with obviously a compressor running. So it was pretty noisy. So I didn't film yesterday, and then today I wanted to film, and it's a nice day out again. So another one of my neighbors is out. He's washing his car and doing stuff on his car, playing loud music. So I thought, okay, well, let's close all the windows, close all the doors, and I'll do some filming. And without thinking about it, I went and turned on my washing machine. So hopefully you don't hear the washing machine in the background. It is kind of noisy and there's not a lot of insulation between the laundry room and the rest of the house. So hopefully you don't hear that in the background. I'm just gonna go with it and see how it goes. So I hope you enjoy this video. So here is a modern guide to granny squares. This unassuming but very colorful book caught my attention when I was looking on Amazon one day. I just had to have this book. I love crocheting for its simplicity, and making a granny square is actually quite simple once you get to know the techniques and have some ideas for them. So having a book like this is fabulous just for the fact that it gives you so many great ideas. And like most crochet and knitting books, it does come with some instructions. It has a guide on how to use the book. Okay, I don't have an exact number for you, but there are over 40 unique granny square designs, and they do have several projects to help you decide what to do with some of your squares. These are three of the, I believe there's only 4 projects. So if you're looking for a project book, this isn't going to be it. It does have some nice ideas for projects, but it is primarily a granny square book. This book was listed for $31 Canadian or $23 US. I really like the size of this book. It's easy to carry around in a project bag. And I took an idea from Tammy, the crafty mompreneur. I think that's her name. Anyways, she has put tabs on each of the squares. And so as she's working through the designs, she's looking at her tabs and choosing from the different colors, because inside it has a difficulty or a skill level. So this one is a skill level 3 balls of wool. So I've been using orange to identify those ones. The skill level 1 ball of wool is green. And the ones that are intermediate are in blue. I've covered up the skill level on that page. So as I'm working through, it's nice to know that I'm picking a particular skill level. Although, to be honest with you, I found that the skill levels don't necessarily apply for everyone. I found that some of the ones that were marked with a lower skill level were actually kind of difficult to get my head wrapped around. So, what have I made with the book? Well, I've made a stack of granny squares that doesn't even fit in the screen. Here you go. I haven't counted them lately, but at one point I had enough to cover my 3 by 6 foot table in the kitchen. I did not have a plan when I started these granny squares. I just picked a bunch of wool. So when I went to my local Walmart to look for wool, I was just looking to go with a rainbow of colors. There is a rainbow pattern and a rainbow project. The project is slightly bigger than the rainbow granny square, but I was looking for the primary colors, nice and bright and happy colors. I'm not exactly sure why I picked 6 colors, but when I first went to the store, I picked 6 colors. I thought that was enough to work with. But as I got into the book, I realized that there were patterns that had more than 6 colors. There was definitely 1 or 2 that have 12 different colors in it. So when I picked out 6 colors, I was really limiting myself. As you can see in the bag, I have more than 6 colors now. So the yarn that I chose from Walmart is Yarnspirations Bernat Premium. Most of these balls of wool are 7 ounces and they are 100% acrylic. The wool gives a guideline of 5mm knitting needles or a 5mm crochet hook, because these are all worsted weight or number 4 yarns. The Granny Square book, however, does give different sizes of crochet hooks to use. So keep that in mind as you're going to make the granny squares in this book. I do have a couple of other balls of wool in my collection that I purchased recently, and they are not the same, but they knit up pretty much the same. Sorry, crochet pretty much the same. And for granny squares, I find that using the same number or same weight of yarn, at least with worsted weight, I typically don't have any issues with tension, but I have been crocheting for quite a long time, so I don't know if a beginner might have some difficulty using different types of yarn or different brands of yarn. So the one color that I have that's different, or one of them, is this Red Heart Super Saver, and it's also 7 ounces and it's 100% acrylic. This yarn does, however, recommend a 5.5mm hook for crocheting. So it's just something to keep in mind as you're crocheting up your granny squares, that you might have a little bit of size difference. And this is where you're going to want to end up blocking your granny squares after you've completed them. So in addition to this bag of yarn, I have a second bag of yarn. And already I've gone through these 2 colors. I've almost finished the balls of wool. And so I've purchased a second ball of yarn or skein of yarn for those 2 colors. This ball of wool here, which is black, I purchased for the Star Wars project that I featured in my first video. And I will be coming back to that project probably in next week's video. The gray was also purchased, and the red sparkle was also purchased for the Star Wars project. And then when I went to Walmart one day, I did find this gray sparkle, which I thought would look nice with the red sparkle. If you watched my other video where I showed you the crocheted hat, I was having really Christmassy vibes with that hat. And so I wanted an additional color to go with the red sparkle so that it doesn't have as much of a Christmassy feel when I pair the two together. So just as a quick recap, this is the crochet hat that I'm making. And I don't have anyone in particular that I'm thinking of giving this to. I might even take this project apart and redo it with the gray instead of the white. Tell me in the comments what you think. Should I frog my crocheted hat and start over so it doesn't look so Christmassy? Or should I just flip it around and turn it into a basket instead? This would probably look really nice under one of my plant pots. So, as you might have guessed, I don't have a clear direction for these granny squares that I'm making. My main goal of using this book was to try out every single one of the patterns. And with 40 or more patterns to choose from, it can get a little bit complicated when you're trying to come up with projects when you've made 40 or more granny squares. So I did at one point pick out groups of granny squares that would go together. And I primarily based it on the colors of the squares. I did throw in a square with a different color. I was getting bored of using the same colors over and over again, so I ended up using a variegated wool for this one. And as you can see, I have an extra little flower from one of the designs. This is one of the patterns that I actually altered the way I made it. So this is my version of the 4-leaf clover pattern. In the pattern, it had you doing a long stitch down here on each of the corners of the petals, and I wasn't getting a very good result with that. So instead I tacked it down with a shorter, I think this is a single crochet in each of the corners. So don't be afraid to change up a pattern if you're not 100% liking how it's going. Not all the techniques that you see in a book necessarily have to be used. And I do have another example of that as well. So this design is called Bright Shimmer. And in the pattern, it recommends that you reverse your project for each and every row. And that's okay if you do have problems with making your granny squares 100% square, but I don't really have that problem of my patterns leaning to the right at all. So I decided to make this one all on the right side, and it gives you a more even look when it comes to your stitches. If you're reversing your square for every row, it does have a slightly different appearance for each row. If that's the way you have to do them, that's the way you have to do them. So this is my version of the Bright Shimmer square. And as you can see, each of the rows is the same. I did not reverse the square as I was making each row. And that gives you a very consistent look to each of the rows. If you flip it over, you can see that it looks quite different on the back side. So there is a slightly different look from one side to the other. But like I said, if you do have problems with your squares leaning to the right, then reversing for each, or flipping your granny square over for each row is going to help you with that problem. One square that you do have to flip for each row is this Intarsia triangle square. And my version of it I actually find it does lean a bit to the right. So this is something that I can fix in my blocking when I go to block these squares. So here's a sneak peek of the 4 projects that are in this book, and they make use of the granny squares in the book with a few little additions and tweaks. I think that I will probably end up making this one right here. This square is very unique. It looks like a gingham cloth. So far I've only done this purple one, but I think it will look really great in all the different colors. So the project itself is actually a basket or a bag. I'll just flip to that page. So you do have to make several different squares and then sew them together. This project is actually quite low sew and would be great for a beginner. As you can see, I have quite a few granny squares here, and I've kind of sorted them out to certain colors and certain patterns. I did quite a few of the plain square, and I've put them together, and I probably could sew up a blanket with these squares that I already have. I might need to make a few additional ones. So what do you think I should make with some of these granny squares? Do you think I should make some of the projects from the book or go with my own designs? Let me know in the comments what you think. I hope you liked this video. Next week, I'm going to be talking about something that is not yarn craft, but it won't be the entirety of my video. We have someone in this household that really enjoys making models. His name is David. He's my partner. And this is a model that he bought me the other day so that we could work on models together. If you didn't know that I was a Star Wars fan, then I'm going to recommend my first video to you, and I hope you'll check it out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye. You want to go outside?